we'll take our first pause. Because in Espanol, there are about 5 or 6 different words for bedroom, depending on where you are in the Spanish speaking world. FYI, growing up, I did not use either one of those words. So, for me, dormitorio was something I learned when I went to South America. Now, those of you that have taken Espanol before, most of you, I think, would have learned dormitorio. If you learned something else, that's fine. You can use that. Otherwise, go with dormitorio. That one's a little more common. If you want to say habitación, that's fine. Another way that Spanish speakers will sometimes refer to a room or a bedroom, excuse me, and it is just like y'all do in English. Okay. Remember, the word cuarto just means room. What's mi? Yeah, so my room, mi cuarto. Okay, so if you just want to say mi cuarto, that's fine also. A lot of Spanish speakers would do the same thing. Okay? Muy bien. Okay. Those of you that took Spanish before, what did you learn for bedroom? Dormitorio? Okay, so just keep it at dormitorio, Cheyenne. So whatever. Okay? Now, looking inside, and I'm going to use dormitorio, okay, for the purpose of this exercise. Looking inside el dormitorio, on the very left, la cama. What is la cama? Bed. Muy bien. La cama, bed. So the thing that you hopefully sleep in. Okay? This one's just kind of funny. If you look on the nightstand, el despertador. Alarm clock. Yeah. It's funny because in Spanish it's literally called a waker-upper. I mean, that would be the translation. It's your waker-upper. But yes, your alarm or your alarm clock, el despertador. Okay. Although this, maybe I need to update the book, because what do most of us use now? At least me. What do we all use nowadays to wake up? Yes, the cell phone. I've got like 5 alarms on that. Okay, I don't think I've had an actual clock in forever. Okay, right above la cama, el estante. Shelf. Yeah. Now, specifically, it's a bookshelf, but it could be any kind of shelf, really. Okay, so if you've got like a top shelf in your closet, let's see, el estante. Okay, now, speaking of your closet, okay, switching over then to the right, el armario, el armario. Closet. All right, now, there are a few different words for closet. Number one, the textbook wants you to learn armario. All right, does anyone here know a different word for closet? En español. No? Okay, then stick with armario, because that's what the textbook wants you to know. Okay, please be aware though that even though they drew it like that, most closets outside of the US, I'm not even going to say just Latin America, but outside of the United States, because I've been to Italy and Britain and stuff, don't actually have like what would, you have a door and it's like a little space and that's where you put your clothes. Okay, most of them are what we would refer to as an armoire, which is why in Spanish it's armario. It's like a closet that you bring in. Built-in closets are not really a thing outside of the US. Okay, unless they've been influenced by Americans or it's like a hotel or something. But otherwise, you will rarely see that in a Spanish-speaking home in South America. Okay, so moving along to the right, la cómoda. What is a cómoda? Dresser. Okay, so the dresser. Okay, cómoda, dresser. Okay, and then finally, la tabla de planchar. The big long board. Ironing board, see, ironing board, and then of course the machine that you would use to iron, la plancha, is the iron. Okay, please be aware that the word for the atomic element and the metal and etc. are different. So don't be like, oh yeah, plancha, atomic number, whatever. No, it's a different word. Okay, so for you science people. Okay? Moving to the right, we're still on the top floor. I don't know why they put that in front of it because I don't call it El Cuarto de Baño. It's just El Baño. All right, so what is El Baño? Bathroom. Okay? ¿Dónde está el baño? Okay? Now, some of the things inside of El Baño. El espejo. What is El espejo? Where you get to look at yourselves, take your selfies. The mirror, Jack's like, oh yeah, I know that. That's what it's for, right? To take selfies. El espejo. Okay? Right underneath it. And I love saying the word because it's just a funny word to say. El lavabo. Lavabo. Sink. Specifically, though, it is a bathroom sink. Because believe it or not, we have a completely different word for a kitchen sink. Okay? So el lavabo, bathroom sink. Moving to the left a little bit, la bañera. La bañera. La bañera? Tub. Okay? David's looking at me funny. Yeah, in Mexico it's different. La bañera. Okay? And then la ducha. La ducha. Shower. Okay? So if you take a bath, you would use la bañera. If you take a shower, then you would use la ducha. Okay? And just so you're aware, this isn't part of the vocab, at least not yet. Okay? Bañar is to bathe, to take a bath, and then of course duchar would be to shower. Okay, so depending on what you do to clean yourself. Okay, and here's where it gets a little PG-13. Okay, if you go to the far right, el inodoro. El inodoro. The thing you take care of business with, either one or two. The toilet, gracias, okay? All right, the toilet, okay? No, we're not like the French. It's not le toilette or el toileto or toileta. No, el inodoro, okay? Moving on down, okay, to the second floor, directly underneath el baño, okay? Most of these you should know because we learned them with the classroom vocabulary, but the name of the room, el comedor. What would el comedor? Dining room. Gracias, Cheyenne. You can see the verb comer. And what does comer mean? To eat. Yeah, it's the room where you eat. El comedor. In English, y'all are a little bit more fancy. You say we dine. Okay, it's our dining room. In Spanish, we don't care. We just call it the eating room. All right, so el comedor. And hopefully your comedor has a mesa. Okay, mesa, table, okay, y silla, okay, chairs, all right, even though that's not the word that's there, you should still remember it. And then, of course, they want you to know for some reason la pared, which we also learned with the classroom. Pared is the wall, and then we also learned ventana when we did classroom. What is ventana? I brought 6 of them. Yes, window. La ventana, window. Yeah, they're right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, muy bien. Okay, la ventana, I guess 7 if you count the one in la puerta. All right, moving on to the left, then here on the second floor. Okay, la cocina. What is la cocina? Kitchen. Okay, so the various things in la cocina. I want to start on the far left because some of these are, pretty simple. La tostadora. What is a tostadora? Toaster. Yes, the toaster. Okay. Now, in Espanol, we literally do not have a word for toast. We call it toasted bread. So just so you know, we'll go over this when we do the food chapter. Pan tostado, toasted bread, and then of course you do that in la tostadora, the toaster. Okay. Now, the full complete name is el horno de microondas. What is el horno de microondas? Microwave, literally microwave oven. The word horno means oven. But just like in English, none of y'all would call it a microwave oven. I don't call it a microwave oven. All right, you just call it the microwave. In Espanol, most people will just call it el microondas. Okay, so if you just say microondas, that is enough for Señor Santos. Okay, underneath el microondas, el lavaplatos. Dishwasher, yes. Platos means dish, lava means to wash, okay, from the verb lavar. All right, so literally the wash dish or the dishwasher, okay, el lavaplatos. Right. Remember, lavabo is a bathroom sink. El fregadero. Fregadero is a kitchen sink, okay? So fregadero, kitchen sink, lavabo, bathroom sink. Will people laugh at you if you confuse them? Yes. All right. So, you're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go wash dishes in the lavabo. And, everyone gets an image of you washing dishes in the bathroom, which is funny. But, and of course, I know I've had to do it once or twice when plumbing breaks. All right. So who knows? Maybe the truth. But just keep your sinks correct. All right. Moving on to the right, la estufa. What is la estufa? Stove. Okay. Now, just FYI, kind of like in English, the word stove could mean either the entire appliance or just the top part, the range where you cook. It's the same thing in Espanol. La estufa can either be the entire appliance or just the top part where you do your cooking, because if you look underneath, el horno. What is el horno? Oven. Horno is the oven. Okay? So, muy bien. Okay? Oh, and it'll come up because it's actually not a word that's given to you. People always ask. You have the word oven in here, but we've made it into a verb. What do you think hornear? What do you use the oven for? To bake. Yeah, so hornear is to bake. Okay? And so sometimes, some people are like, oh, I love baking. Me gusta hornear. All right? Oh, really? Okay, so, Gabby, where's the cupcakes? Type of thing. All right, so hornear, to bake. Okay? Now, this is not unusual also in areas outside of the United States. It's not just in the Spanish-speaking world. The lavadora and the secadora are quite literally in the kitchen, okay? In Italy and in Inglaterra, I've been to a couple countries in Asia, you put them in the kitchen, okay? So starting off with the first part of the process, what is la lavadora? Lavar means to wash, so what would a lavadora be? The washer, okay? So that's where you do your laundry, la lavadora. And then la secadora, dryer, okay? The verb to dry is secar, S-E-C-A-R, all right? Now, like I said, in a lot of areas outside of the U.S., they are actually placed in the kitchen because that's where the source of water is. Some of you might be like, well, what about the bathroom? Yeah, you can't fit a washer dryer in the bathroom. All right, so they're in the kitchen, okay? And just also as an even further FYI, most places don't have secadoras. In a lot of other countries, you just let it dry outside. Just let it air dry. And it does your clothes tends to last longer. It doesn't fade away as quickly. But of course you do have to wait longer. And if the weather's bad, type of thing. Okay. Finally, la cocina. El refrigerador. El refrigerador. Fridge. Okay. Actually, it's the refrigerator, Jack. For fridge, you just say refi. No, and you bring up a good point. Most of y'all probably won't say, yes, I'm going to the refrigerator. Okay? No, it's like, oh yeah, it's in the fridge. In Espanol, young people would just say, oh, sí, la refi. Okay? El refi. So if you just call it refi, that's like saying fridge. Okay? Now, similar to la estufa, refrigerador could refer to the entire appliance. Or the next word, la nevera, is typically only the top part. All right, what is la nevera then? What's usually the top part? Freezer. Okay, the freezer. Okay, unless you're one of those fancy people with the bottom freezer. Okay, you pull out. All right, also. So nevera is the freezer. Refrigerador is either the part where you keep things cold or it's the entire appliance. All right. Oh, someone's getting a ticket. Now, moving on down, okay. La sala. What would be la sala? Is that your car? Oh, okay. What is la sala? Living room, yes. Okay. Now, in some places, they call it el salón. I have never called it that, so, but I've heard some people. Usually it's just la sala. Okay. Some of your things in la sala. La lámpara. What is la lámpara? Lamp. You might have a lamp. Okay. And this is just another FYI, in a lot of Spanish-speaking countries, there are no fixtures. Okay. You basically bring in your own sources of light and you plug it in. Okay. You might have a thing and where like one of the switches like controls that thing, so once you plug it into that one, that will turn it on. But that's it. Usually you have to go and manually turn on all the lámparas. Okay, this one's really hard. El sofá. Sofa or couch, however you say it in English. Okay, in front of el sofá. Okay, la alfombra. What is la alfombra? Rug. Okay, now, just a little bit of culture. Okay, in the Spanish-speaking world, there is no carpeting. It's usually, the floors are usually tile. Okay, pretty much everywhere. So, alfombra can mean rug, but it can also mean carpet. Basically any kind of floor covering, or soft, clothy, floofy, whatever. I don't even know how to describe carpet. Okay, so any kind of floor covering, whether it's a rug or a carpet, we refer to as alfombra. All right. Next to el sofá, the word mesita. Remember that if you add ito or ita to the end of the word, it makes that word small. Okay? So literally translated, small table. Okay? But what kind of small tables do you usually have in your sala? Coffee table, yes, or an end table, okay? We don't distinguish in Espanol, all right? So if you have mesita, if you're going to give the definition, you can put coffee table on there, you can put end table. I suppose you can put small table, since that's the literal meaning.
Would you like to make some?
Yeah, that's also a mesita. Okay, yeah, we just kind of use it for anything small that's table like. Okay, so, and I mean, come on, how many of us actually drink coffee on a coffee? All right, type of thing. Okay, so yeah, all right, and then here we go. Behind the lady, el sillón. El sillón. What is this? A chair, okay? And it does mean chair, but it is a big, poofy, oversized chair. Okay. We also use the word sillon for like recliners. Okay, that's the big Barca loungers. Okay, the big thing that your dad sits in. All right, watches the game. Shannon's laughing. He's like, oh yeah, God bring him his beer. All right, drinking beer while watching the game and reclining. All right, but yeah, any kind of big, oversized stuffed chair is a sillon. Okay, this is just a silla. Okay, and I guess that could be two, but it's the closest thing I had. All right, I wasn't going to bring a recliner. So el sillon. Okay, and then finally, we'll learn the verb when we get to the chores. But la aspiradora. What is la aspiradora? Vacuum. Okay, the vacuum cleaner or the vacuum. Okay. Now, last couple words. Oh, we've got a few. Move to the right. La escal. You see. Oh my God! Thank you. Lo siento. El cuadro is a framed picture or painting. Framed painting. Literally, the word cuadro means square. But in this context, it is either a framed picture or a framed painting. But it has to be framed. Gracias. I totally, did I miss anything else? No, okay. El cuadro. So framed picture, framed painting. All right, now to the escalera. What is escalera? Stairs. Okay, so the escalera to go down is just over here. Okay, please be aware that in Espanol, escalera also means ladder. Anything that helps you go up and down in Spanish we refer to as escalera. What would escalera automática? Escalator, yeah. Yeah, automatic stairs. But I mean, that's what a escalator is, okay? Type of thing, all right? But yes, in Espanol, anything that gets you up and down is an escalera. So even a ladder, step ladder, you know, all of that. El piso or el suelo.
Carpet?
Not carpet.
Floor?
Floor, okay, floor, all right? I learned suelo growing up. But then when I went to South America, everybody called it a piso, okay? Whichever one you have learned in the past, if you've taken Spanish before, all right? You can call it el piso, you can call it el suelo. If this is your first time, pick whichever one's easier for you, I guess. Please be aware that we use this just like in English. So for example, right now, we are up on the second floor of Payne Hall. In that context, we only use the word piso, though. So you would say, oh, Español, segundo piso, Payne Hall. Okay. AB, academic building, lo siento. I need más café, and this is only agua. So segundo piso, AB. Okay, you would never say segundo suelo, all right? That just sounds stupid. All right, but, you know, second floor, segundo piso. So that's the one, you know, boom, boom, boom. Okay. La puerta. Okay, we've already done. What is la puerta? Door. Muy bien. El jardín. Ooh, el jardín. Garden. Okay, now. Once again, in most parts of the world outside of the US, including Spanish-speaking countries, people do typically not have yards, you know, just an area in front or an area in back where you grow what is basically an ornamental weed. That's all grass is. It's just a noxious weed that we've tamed, okay? And we cut it and make it look pretty, okay? For most people, that's considered a waste of space. No, let me back up. Because of that, there is literally no word for a yard in Espanol. There is a word for yard, the unit of measurement, okay, like 2 yards, 3 yards of fabric, okay? That's yarda, right? But in order to talk about the area in front of your house where there's grass, a tree, a couple bushes, you know, your mom keeps her roses, whatever, okay? For that, we use the word jardín, okay? So, like, literally the garden in front and the garden in back. Okay, so we use jardín for that, just because, like I said, yards, the way we think about it, doesn't really exist. Okay? The last room, if you go underneath the house, it's underneath el sótano. What is el sótano? Basement. Yeah. Okay. Now, please be aware that in a lot of places, even within the United States, the basements that you all think of don't really exist. I never had a real basement until I moved here. Okay. In California, there are no basements. There's crawl areas, there's crawl spaces where like the piping and electric stuff hangs out. But for example, in California, why wouldn't we have basements? Earthquakes, yeah, your house would just sink down, type of thing. Okay, kind of the same thing in other areas. So even though it's called El Sótano, it's similar in the sense that it's more like a crawl space where, yeah, the pipes have to go somewhere, the electrical stuff has to go somewhere, and yeah, it's under the house, and there's basically just enough room for someone to crawl underneath and, you know, fix things, but it's not like, oh yeah, that's where we hang out, and that's where my video games are, and that's where like the extra couch and the bed and, you know, all of that other stuff. Okay, like literally a whole other floor in the house. Okay, now it isn't here because it really seriously does not exist in most Spanish-speaking countries, and also in other parts of this country, because once again, it wasn't until I moved here that I actually had one. But, and I am writing it at the very top of the board. What do you think altillo? Attic. Well, yeah, it's right at the top. Okay, so the word for attic is altillo. Now, obviously, not really part of your vocab, but if you wanted to, because you are going to describe your house, then you could talk about, you know, if you have an attic or if you keep stuff in the attic. Or once upon a time, I had a student who was like, "Yeah, my bedroom's the attic. Like that's where his parents stuck him. They just had lots of kids, so stick them in the attic." And no altillo. He said it was freezing in the winter and scorching hot in the summer, but it was his. Okay, so muy bien. All right. Now, if you go to the right, it gives you a little bit more context and it gives you a couple more words. Okay. Now, not all of you probably live in a casa. Okay. Maybe some of you live in, what is apartamento? Apartment. Okay. Now, in most Spanish-speaking countries, okay, apartamento is the word for apartment. But as you can see there, there is also the word departamento. Even though that means department, okay, in Mexico, departamento means apartment. So I always got confused because people would talk about, you know, they work in this departamento, but, you know, they're going home to their departamento, and I'd be like, wait, what? And then someone would say apartamento, okay, and there was another one. And then the word piso, which we already know means floor, in España, piso means apartment, okay? So, you know, Julia can say, oh, tengo un piso nuevo. And I may think she's saying, you got new flooring in. Oh, that's nice. Okay, cool. And no, she literally just moved into a new apartment.
Is home and house both casa?
Sí.
So the one home, you also.
It's voy a casa. The slight difference is that if you just say voy a casa, it means I'm going home. But voy a la casa is I'm going to the house. If you add the article, la, it turns into house. Subtle difference, I know. Okay? It's not there. Oh no, it's on the next page. But Do not pronounce it garage. It is pronounced garaje, el garaje, okay? And en el garaje, you can have el coche, el carro, or el auto. All three words mean car, okay? Pick the one you like. For me, I grew up calling it a carro. It was a carro. If you can roll your R, carro, carro. If you can't, el coche is fine, okay? Or el auto, which comes from the word automobile, which comes from the English automobile, which 100 years ago, that's what people called cars, all right? And then I'm not doing all of them. Mueble just means furniture. So if you make it plural, muebles, okay? All the furniture you may have, all right? Turn the page, there's a couple more words, and then we're gonna do un poquito de práctica, all right? Now,
Which page, sorry?
120, 120. Now, this is also not common, all right? But el aire acondicionado, okay? Air conditioning, all right? Heck, it's not even, I mean, it's kind of, I don't have air conditioning here, at least not central air. I do have window units, okay? But in most areas outside of the US, aire acondicionado is not common, all right? Public places, yes, all right? Private homes, no, okay? Calefacción. Calefacción is your heat. And in this case, it's not like, you know, the heat coming from, it's literally your heating system. Yeah, I point to this because that's where the heat comes from, those old school boilers, okay? So whatever kind of heating system you have, that is your calefacción, okay? Chimenea, I know it looks like the word chimney, okay? Or, I'm sorry, chimney. Everyone tells me I pronounce it wrong. There's no second I there. So chimney, but in Espanol, it also means fireplace, like the entire system. We just refer to it as a chimenea, okay? Does anyone have a chimenea in su casa? Yes? Am I the only one? Oh, come on, Jack, you have to have a chimenea. No? Oh my God, okay. You're all coming over next Christmas and we'll roast marshmallows, and, you know.
When I was little, my mom got a cardboard chimenea and we put our stockings on that.
That is so cute.
Yeah, it was really cute.
Oh my gosh. I honestly, once again, first time ever in my life with a chimenea, I thought everyone around here had one.
A lot of old houses do.
Okay, all right, close enough. Do you hang your stocking on it? No. Oh, okay, well then, doesn't count, Jack. All right, so the chimenea, okay? Now, obviously, we have casa, we have apartamento, we have condominio, okay? Where do you live? Do you remember, Cheyenne? Because you're on campus. I see your residence life and your RA thing. No. There you go. Muy bien. Some of you might live in la residencia. It doesn't mean residence, okay? But looking at Cheyenne for clues, what would be residencia? Dorms. Yeah, she's an art. It literally says raw. At first I was like, ooh, she must be a cheerleader. No, it's RA. Okay, so yes, residencia. But if you live in a condo, un condominio. We already have garage. Now, yes, casa means home, but so does the word hogar. Hogar, though, is the more poetic form. So for example, we might say something like hogar dulce hogar. Does anyone know what the word dulce means?
Sweet.
So what would hogar dulce hogar? Yeah. You know, for our expressions, for our sayings, for, like I said, it's the more poetic, you know, way of calling it home. Okay? Like there's no place like home. No hay lugar como el hogar. We wouldn't say no hay lugar como casa. All right, that's just like, you know, yeah, I'm going home. All right, just common, average, everyday talk, but, you know, all right. Techo, the roof. Okay, so if you're talking about your roof, Okay. If you go down to the bottom, por favor, remember that I said there are about 5, 6 different words for bedroom, and they give them to you right there. So most of you said that, you kind of learned, dormitorio, so go ahead and use that one. I grew up not using any of the ones that they gave you on the previous page. In Mexico, the word for bedroom is recámara. It's the third one there, I think, or the fourth one, la recámara. So that's what I called a bedroom pretty much all my life until I went to other Spanish-speaking countries. And they're like, what the hell? What do you mean recámara? What about a camera? And I was just like, they're like, oh, el dormitorio, la habitación, tu cuarto, la alcoba. And I'd be like, okay, whatever. All right. So, but yeah. Okay. Remember though, 21 different countries. There are always going